The Packers are king of the North. The Lions are better than the Cards. Henceforth, we had Tuesday night games. Lots of players went up in flames. And were there more injuries than positive COVID results? Of course! Welcome to the Mish. Alrighty, everybody. Before we jump in, I'm just going to let you guys know, and you can obviously see by how long the video is this week, that this will be a quicker episode. I normally record on Tuesdays, but since there were Tuesday games, we didn't know what the story of this last week was until those games had happened. And that compiled with the fact that I will be leaving in about 2 hours to go up north to my grandparents' house. It's going to be quick with this episode in terms of duration. So, with all that said, today is Bree's birthday, the day that I'm recording this, December 22nd. So in honor of that, we're going to be drinking one of her beers. So, cheers. Alrighty, game recaps. T-Corn and I were on bye, so I'm not going to talk about us at all. Decent performances from both of us. I did lose Godwin for the season, but whatever. We'll get to that later. Bruce vs. Abby. This one was not very close at all. In fact, it was probably the biggest difference of the week. Abby won, of course, 165.18 to 97.9, and she got the most points on the week. Another beer for you, Abby. And 40% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to our second playoff matchup, Lincoln versus Caleb. This one was a bit closer, but still decently spread apart points. Caleb won 100.06 to 86.1, and 60% of people got that one correct. And if you thought that was a low-scoring matchup, get a load of this. Adam versus Colin. This is probably by far the lowest-scoring total matchup of the season. Both teams above 70 or below 70, and these were actually the two lowest-scoring teams on the week. So the only person that Colin would have beat was Adam. And obviously Adam would have lost to everybody. So Colin won this matchup 69.26 to 54.84, and 20% of people got that one correct. Fiala versus Derek, a bit more high scoring, but Fiala ended up getting the victory here. Not super close. He won 112.2 to 84.96, and 20% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to State Farm versus Michael, the closest matchup of the week, and also pretty decently high scoring, all things considered, for this week, which was, I think, a historic low in terms of scoring. Michael got the victory here, 113.58 to State's 109.58, and 80% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to our final matchup, Brian versus Sam. This one was also pretty close and pretty low scoring. Sam ended up getting the victory here, 88.58 to 73.12, and 40% of people got that one correct. For the week, State and Adam, of course State, got 5 points, and actually I believe the rest of us got 1 or 0, so it's either you had it all or nothing. Obviously State's winning for total and average, still 66 total and an average of 5.5. So that was last week's matchups. Moving us on to the power rankings, we'll just run through this real quick. Adam in 14th place lost to Colin. We'll see if he can not be Sacco again. Brian also lost to Sam. He's at 13. Again, we'll see if he cannot be Sacco. Colin at 12 had the second lowest scoring points, but he got lucky and played Adam and beat him. So he's not going to be Sacco this year again. But that would have been interesting. But yeah, number 11, we've got Michael. Number 11, we've got State Farm. He lost to Michael, so he's in contention for Sacco, just 1 year removed from winning the championship. We'll see if he can not be Sacco. So, moving us on to number 10, we've got Derek. You lost to Fiala this past week. I believe you scored a decent amount of points, but was not enough, and we'll see if you can not repeat as back-to-back Sacco. So, Derek at 10. Number 9, we've got Sam. Beat Brian, so you're good for this year in terms of not being punished. But we'll see how well you can finish overall in the season. So that is Sam at 9. Number 8, we've got Michael. You beat State Farm, and a pretty close matchup, pretty decent score. So we'll see how well you can finish the year. Number 7, we've got Fiala. You beat Derek. Not going to be cycled this year, Fiala, as much as all of us would have loved to see you travel from Florida to come do karaoke or whatever. Or us, I guess, travel to Florida. That'd be a fun destination draft, potentially. But not this year, maybe next year. Moving us on to number 6, Bruce, you did a pretty poor performance in the playoffs this past week. I'm sure you have wanted a better performance, but, you know, that just happens sometimes. Number 5, we've got Lincoln. Lost to, and Bruce obviously lost to Abby, but, you know, anyone would have lost to Abby. Moving us on to number 5, Lincoln lost to Caleb. Pretty rough considering how well you had been doing throughout the entire season. Definitely one of the top 1 or 2 teams throughout the whole season for the most part, except for the beginning. But, you know, you had a good run. Moving us on to number 4, Caleb, still in the playoffs, beat Lincoln this past week. Decent scoring. Obviously, you probably would have wanted more, but, you know, you've got a tough opponent this next week, so we'll see if you can get those performances. Number 3, we've got T-Corn. Had a bye this past week, so nothing to worry about, but you did still put up a decent amount of points, and then you're playing Caleb this week, so we'll see how well you can do against him. Moving us on to number 2, I've got myself. I had a bye this past week, and I play Abby, so that's obviously, I think, a very tough matchup. Not very many people have beaten her this season, and I look to do it right now. So that, of course, leaves Abby at number 1. She beat Bruce pretty handily in the playoffs last week, and, of course, plays me this week. So Abby at number 1. Take a quick sip, and we'll jump into this week's matchups. Alrighty. Me versus Abby. This one, I believe whoever wins this matchup is going to be the champion in our league. I believe we've got the 2 best teams. Obviously, I put us at the top 2 for the power rankings. As I mentioned before, Chris Godwin tore his ACL this past week, which really sucks because, you know, he was really good for me for quite a while, and I'm going to miss him. But consolation, Abby also lost Leonard Fournette in the same game, so at least it's kind of a similar disadvantage in terms of injuries for both of us. Aaron Jones is currently questionable, but I imagine he would play. And then I do have some COVID issues on my side with Tyler Higbee, so we'll see if he can come off and I can plug him in. Overall, though, I think this is going to be a very close and high-scoring matchup, and I do think that I'm going to get the victory here. I put it as an upset because Abby is obviously, I'm sure, the favorite in the hearts and minds of everybody. And she did score the most points on the season, so that's how I can officially lock it down as an upset pick. But yeah, should be a very close matchup. Moving us on to Caleb versus T-Corn, the other playoff matchup. Obviously, both teams are pretty good. You got James Conner, who did play, but he's still listed as questionable, and then Duke Johnson, or sorry, I keep mixing them up. I wish you probably had Duke Johnson, but David Johnson, also listed as questionable for you, Caleb. And then currently Travis Kelce is on the COVID list for you, T-Corn. We'll see if he can get taken off the list in time for the matchup. And then there's Ramondre Stevenson, who is currently questionable. Overall, I think this will be also a pretty close matchup. Obviously, both of these teams are pretty good, but I will be picking T-Corn as my winner. Moving us on to Lincoln versus Bruce, the 2 eliminated teams from the playoffs. Not great performances from either of them. Obviously, I'm sure they wish they had some players play better / play at all. Obviously, Lamar Jackson did not play last week for Lincoln, but we'll see if he can come back this week. And he is obviously questionable, and then Joe Mixon is also questionable for Lincoln, and Justin Fields, your backup, also questionable, but I imagine he'd play regardless. And Bruce does not look to have any injury issues at the moment. I will be picking Lincoln, and I will be picking him as my lock pick for this matchup. A lot of his guys underperformed by quite a bit, and I think they are bound to bounce back. So that is that matchup. Moving us on to Derek versus Adam. Terrible performance from Adam last week, and pretty solid from Derek despite the loss. But you know, Austin Eckler is questionable with injury, but also he potentially could be put on the COVID list. And then speaking of, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is currently on the COVID list. Not sure if he'll be able to clear by Saturday, Christmas, as we face the Browns here at Green Bay. And there's also Damian Harris and Adam Thielen on your bench, who are both listed as questionable. Not sure if either will play. Over on Adam's side, your kicker, Harrison Butker, got COVID. You do have a new kicker in place, but, you know, it's the Chiefs kicker. They score a lot of points, so I'm sure you'd probably plug him in if he cleared. And then there's Pat Freiermuth, questionable. Jarvis Landry still on that COVID list. And then Mike Evans with that hamstring injury that a lot of players have had, especially in that Bucs game with his teammate Leonard Fournette getting that same injury. Mike Evans currently obviously questionable, so we'll see if he plays. And I will be picking, though, Derek as my winner for this matchup. Moving us on to State Farm versus Brian. Questionable Aaron Rodgers, but, you know, he's going to play. He's going to set that record for most touchdown passes thrown by a Packers quarterback at home at Lambeau on Christmas. Where else would you rather do it? You got Julio Jones, obviously injured because that's Julio Jones. And COVID injured. Allen Robinson still with COVID. And Darren Waller still injured over on Brian's side. And then over on State Farm's side, you just got Kadarius Toney on that COVID list. All of that said, I will be picking Brian. I think Aaron Rodgers is just going to ball out, hopefully a lot to Devontae Adams. But yeah, I just think Brian's got some good players there, and it's going to be a good matchup. Moving us on to Colin versus Fiala, a one-time champion versus a one-time Sacco. Different circumstances this year, obviously. Over on Fiala's side, DeAndre Swift still questionable. Not sure if he'll even return at all this season, with the Lions being a bad football team and not really playing for anything. But other than that, you seem to be fine in terms of injuries over there, Fiala. And then Colin, you got Antonio Brown potentially returning from injury this week. The Bucs definitely need him, and they would love to get him back in the lineup there. And then Darrell Henderson, not injured per se, but still kind of coming back from COVID and his injury. So we'll see if he can perform at his 100%. And then you got Emmanuel Sanders, currently questionable on your bench. I will be picking Fiala in this matchup. Just think he's got the better players, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have picked him. Moving us on to our final matchup of the week, in our second to last week of the season. So, Michael versus Sam. Dak Prescott not injured, just playing not very good, but you do have Saquon, questionable, going to be playing against the Eagles this week if he does give it a go. Tyler Lockett still on that COVID list, so we'll see if he can come back and play this week against Chicago. And then over on Michael's side, nothing in terms of injuries besides obviously TJ Hawkinson, who has been out for a week or so now. Overall, though, I do think Michael is going to come away with this victory. And yeah, that was this past week's matchups. I will quickly get a refreshment here and be back with you in a few. Alrighty, that'll do it for this week's episode. Again, maybe you liked it a bit shorter. If so, that's great, because that's less work for me. But yeah, I hope you guys all have a fantastic Christmas. Hopefully you get to see some friends and family, have some good presents and nice food, and just have a good time. Good luck to all of you except for Abby this week. But you know, if Abby wins, she deserves it. You know, she's been playing great all season, and like I said, I think the winner of our matchup will win the whole thing. That's my bold prediction. Let's bring those back. But yeah, that'll just about do it. So with that, thank you, and thank you. Alrighty, we've got a flip, and I don't think I've ever flipped on Abby. And seeing that she is my opponent and potentially last opponent of meaning this season, I will be flipping on her. It would have been fitting, but maybe it's just saving it for next week. Merry Christmas.